What's going on, everyone? So Victor Wembanyama had quite the impressive rookie season, and San Antonio clearly got their foundation block, their pillar for the foreseeable future, right? He's the guy that you could see him hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy numerous times, and he has all the potential in the world to be a top 10 player all time. Again, he won Rookie of the Year. He had just quite the impressive just season as a rookie. He already had a lot of just like confidence and swagger to him and just kind of looked like a guy that was already kind of seasoned in the league. And then on top of that, you can make the argument that he deserved the Defensive Player of the Year this year. He was that good defensively, and he's going to win multiple of those. He's going to be a very impressive talent. And like the next 2-3 years, it is very possible we're talking about Victor Wembanyama as the best player in the league. And, there is this kind of juggling act that the Spurs are going to have to kind of deal with, right? Because Victor is so young that you don't have to necessarily rush and go, oh, we have to build a contender in the next 2 years. But you look at how good he is already, and it kind of gives you this maybe we should kind of expedite this a little bit, right? Where if he had his little struggles, and I'm not saying he was perfect by any stretch. I'm not saying he's already, the best player in the league or anything like that, but you see, man, if you got the right pieces around him, you might be second round of the playoffs at worst, right? So I do think that there is going to be this juggling act from San Antonio. And look, I trust San Antonio. They've had a dynasty. They are a organization that prides themselves in winning. I know that they haven't had it the last few years, for quite some time, but still, again, it just takes that one guy, and San Antonio's got that one guy. But what they need more than anything right now, in my opinion, is a real playmaker and a point guard, and somebody that can, obviously take some of the burden off of Victor Wembanyama, but also make things easier for him in the playmaking department, right? Because that's been the big issue with San Antonio when you watch their games. It's there's times where he's out there, he's got established position. I've seen times where he's wide open and Spurs players are just completely looking off him. It is incredibly frustrating, right? So they need to start getting that guy in the room to kind of go the route of okay, here's your setup man, right? Here's the guy that's going to make things easier for you. Here's, obviously a potential running mate for the next X amount of years, whatnot, right? You want to try to get that established. Now, obviously there's free agency. Maybe they go the veteran route. There's a lot of talks of maybe they bring in a Chris Paul, where it's yeah, he's not the guy long-term, but he's just a guy that can come in while they bring in a young guy. Maybe they take a flyer on some guy or somebody via the draft. And they kind of just mold him and shape him and just get a guy that can take some pressure, right? But then there's a couple other options, which I want to dive into here. And let's just start off right from the beginning. So obviously there's the draft, right? That would be the easiest point to start. You have several options as far as this draft goes. A couple nice little prospects that could potentially come in and make some noise. This draft isn't looked at as this great, you could be getting the next superstar type thing. There are a couple guys like Castle and whatnot. You got Topic that he's somebody that may potentially be something, but there's concerns about his injury history already. He's got some knee injuries and stuff. But then you get guys like Rob Dillingham. Dillingham is a guy that's looked at as this two-way potential playmaking, can go get a bucket type guard. He's comes from Kentucky, so he comes from a good pedigree, a good organization, a college or university organization that can come in, kind of translate, right? Look at all the Kentucky guards that have had huge success in the NBA, right? So Rob Dillingham is a guy that many perceive and go, okay, that could be the guy. So there's obviously the draft route where it's okay, we go get this guy, a 19-year-old that we can grow, develop, and now you got him and Victor Wembanyama for the next 20 years, whatever, right? That is definitely something that they're super high on a guy. Then you could go that route. Obviously, especially with this draft, you want to kind of take the guy that you think is the best, right? I also wouldn't mind seeing San Antonio get a guy like Castle or something like that if he's available, right? To me, it's this draft is kind of looked at as a bit of a crapshoot. There was a scout that said Basically, this draft is like drafting Tobias Harris #1. That's kind of what you're looking at as far as like players go. But, there's always that guy that, or, several guys, even in terrible drafts, that guy that stands out and just, you're like, wow, that guy was really good, right? You never really know. And I'm not even saying that Rob or any, Topic or any of these guys will be superstars or anything like that, but they don't necessarily need that. You just need somebody that can play the role that is necessary outside of like the draft. Now, obviously, there's rumors of a guy like Trey Young. Now, I'm not big on Trey for San Antonio. San Antonio doesn't seem to be big on Trey. However, there's this every 5 minutes, there's like this conflicting report, right? It's like one guy says like, oh no, they're really interested in Trey. And then you see this other report where it's like, San Antonio doesn't believe that he's a Spurs guy and they want to stay away from him, which I just think, look, Victor's going to be your best player, right? And Trey and Victor, I think, would be dynamic. They'd be a lot of fun to watch. And if anyone can kind of mask Trey's elements on the defensive side of things, it would be Victor. I mean, that guy covers so much ground, it's insane. But Trey is just so high usage and on ball that, one, I don't believe he's a Spurs guy. And two, I just think you want to have, yes, you want your point guard to be able to be the point guard to make plays, but you also want to get the ball to your best player more times than not, right? Like Victor Wembanyama, if he becomes the guy that many believe he will be, you don't want a guy in Trey shooting more shots than him, right? You want to get the ball to your best player and have him just go to work and just be able to take over and dominate the game of basketball. But you want to have that other guy that can at any moment step up and kind of be that balance. And the question is, can Trey be that guy, right? Is he going to be capable? No, I'm not saying he can. He's still incredibly young and can potentially, be a guy that makes those adjustments, makes those changes, especially under Pop. Like if anyone could probably get him to kind of buy in, it would be Pop. But he's not my favorite choice. And I don't think San Antonio is going to go that route personally. But, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. Next up, Deonte Murray, right? So I actually really like the idea of bringing back Deonte Murray. Obviously, he'd cost less than Trey Young. Atlanta's in this position to where they need to get rid of Trey or Dejounte. It just hasn't worked. They have all intentions of getting rid of one. I think you bring Dejounte in, and I think now you have that guy who can be that complement. He's explosive. We've seen what he's been able to do when he actually is allowed to play the point guard role. I mean, look at what he was for San Antonio when he was in San Antonio. I mean, you talk about an all-star, all-defensive guy. This was a guy that led a team to the playoffs, right? And was looked at as okay, he's coming. He could potentially move into superstar status. And then he went to Atlanta, and it was just not a good decision for all parties, right? Where now I think he could go back to San Antonio. He has that relationship with Pop. He'd have a real star that complements his skill set. Dejounte could have the ball in his hands. I think Dejounte and San Antonio would be a match made in heaven. The thing is he's not the guy that, you'd have him for another 5+ years potentially, but, he is older. He's not 24, 25. He's not 30. He's 27, right? So you're talking about a guy that, you'd still have for the long haul. You'd have a guy that also I think he would come in and bring a level of maturity, right? That, a 19-year-old just isn't going to have yet. Where Dejounte is a guy, again, he's been in the playoffs. He's had those moments. Right? He's a guy that can run an offense. This is a guy that go get you 20+ and dish out 9 assists. He's a guy that especially if he can get back to that old defensive guard he was last time he was with San Antonio, which was also before the injuries and stuff. But he's a guy that now you have that dynamic, athletic point of attack guard, and then you got the big fellow that's holding it down everywhere else. Right? I just think you'd have that 1-2 punch on the offensive side, but you could potentially have that 1-2 punch on the defensive side as well. Really have that nice balance, kind of bring it all and put it all together. So Dejounte might be my favorite option as far as what's out there and what could be potentially obtainable for San Antonio. Another guy that has come up recently, though, is Darius Garland. Now, Darius Garland, it's gonna be predicated on what happens with Donovan Mitchell. If Donovan Mitchell sticks around and stays with Cleveland and signs a new contract, then he gets the extension. Then Darius Garland's gone. He's supposed to demand and request a trade. They need to move him anyway. The pairing's awkward and just doesn't fit. Now, Darius Garland, I think, has the most. He's not as good right now as DeJounte and Trey. Right? They're the better guys, but one, I think a lot of people forget how good Darius Garland was before Donovan Mitchell came. Right? You talk about a guy that was an all-star, giving you, 22 and 9, played good defense. I mean, even this year, he was like a 115 defensive rated, like guy that can play both sides of the basketball, and he's still incredibly young. He's like 24, right? So he's a guy that still has a lot of upside, a lot of room, and a lot of potential, and is a guy that I do think you could bring in and kind of have for that, 10-year period, right? To where you got your point guard for the next 10 years, and you got Victor Wembanyama for, next, hopefully 20, right? So, like, I actually like the idea of Darius Garland for the Spurs. Again, right now, I think he could potentially, in the right fit, under Pop, having Victor, I think it is possible that maybe he could kind of rival Dejounte Murray. But again, I just think Dejounte Murray, he's kind of the more grown version, right? Like, Dejounte Murray is a guy, and they do have a lot of similarities. Dejounte Murray is just bigger and longer. So that's kind of where I lean. And then also just older and been in the league longer. So he just, again, has a little more understanding, a little more maturity, right? Like Darius, like, to me, DeJounte, when he's at his best, is like, say Darius Garland is stage 1, right? Well, DeJounte Murray stage 2, right? Like, Darius Garland is Charmander, and you have DeJounte Murray who's Charmeleon, right? Like, and then they're hoping that that Darius Garland could eventually evolve into Charizard, right? There you go. Boom. Right? You get a little Pokemon reference in there. But, like, I do like the idea of Darius Garland coming in. I do think the ceiling for him, because he's still young and under Pop, having Victor, I do think is maybe potentially higher. Still, I think Trey would be, obviously, again, the best out of the three. But I just think Darius Garland and DeJounte would be the better fits. Right? And I think that they would be more willing to kind of be a Pop system guy, come in, kind of play the Spurs way. But I don't think you could really go wrong, right? I think the Spurs are in excellent shape. And again, you're not looking to bring a point guard in to be the other guy. Like, obviously, you're hoping best case scenario you draft like Dylan Ham, and he becomes the next SGA. Right? Like, that's best case scenario. Now you got Victor Wembanyama and, like, SGA 2.0. Right? Like, that's the hope. But that's also a tall task, right? Like, it's not something that's really easy. But, I don't hate the idea of, like, let's say they draft a Castle. Right? Because I think he's a guy that has potential to be a legit two-way, maybe even star in this league. I really like his game a lot, personally. But let's say you draft somebody like that, and then you go and you bring in a DeJounte Murray. Now you got that veteran that can come in, play the point guard role, keep everything together, keep guys together, has a relationship and understanding with Pop, understands the system, understands what Pop wants, come in, add some constant, add some consistency. Or you go like the Darius Garland route, where you get a little upside, still got some youth, and now you got these three young guys that you're building for the future. Just put the complementary pieces around them, and let's go. You're off to the races. So we'll see how it plays out. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass the question on you. Love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Is there anyone in particular do you want? Do you want them to go to the draft route? Do you want them to go the free agency route? Do you want them to go the veteran route? Do you want them to go to the trade route? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I would love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.